Hello everyone. I'm glad to see you on my channel. The story I'm going to tell you today is pure. It is true that all the bad things that happen in life happen for a reason. It is said that we can appreciate the good things, the things when they happen to us. I hope you enjoy this story. I wish you a pleasant viewing experience.
Ariana, come to my office for a moment, Harry said into the selector, summoning the secretary to his office. You paged me, Harry? The girl asked, opening the door to the boss's office. Yes, I have an urgent conversation with you, the man answered, going through business documents. Attentively listening to you, replied the secretary, taking out a notebook and a pen to write down everything the chief will say. As you know, this weekend is our company's anniversary. I don't have time to prepare for the party, so you'll have to organize the party. Book a restaurant and send out invitations to business partners. Are there budgetary restrictions or not? Ariana decided to ask. Everything needs to be at a high level, so you don't have any restrictions. It is important that the party is memorable for both the invited guests and our partners, so don't forget to invite a star and find a good host, Harry replied. Okay, will do. Anything else? No, that's all for now. If there are any additional questions or difficulties, you speak up. We'll solve everything. Okay, Harry. I'll look for a restaurant today and make a holiday menu. The secretary replied obediently and went to the waiting room to call elite restaurants in an attempt to book one of them. Hi, is Harry in? A man in a business suit asked, meeting the receptionist in the reception area. Hello, John. Yes, Harry is in the office, replied Ariana, greeting the chief's companion. Great, make us 2 cups of coffee, said John, and headed to the business partner's office to discuss the latest signed contract. Hi, it's good to see you, said Harry, seeing his companion on the doorstep. Hi, do you have a few minutes to discuss the recent contract with the Israeli firm? Yes, of course. Would you like some tea or coffee? I've already told Ariana to make us 2 cups of coffee, John replied. Good. What exactly did you want to discuss about the contract? Harry asked, trying to understand what the business partner and co-owner of the oil company was interested in. Don't you think we're cheap? With the volume we've ordered, the price is usually much higher than what we've contracted for. No. That was the plan. You realize that this is an entry into a new market, and we had to compromise on price to gain the trust of our partners in Israel. They own all the gas stations in the country, and if the cooperation is fruitful, they will increase supplies dozens, if not hundreds of times. As you realize, it will be a whole different order of numbers, and everything will pay off, replied Harry, arguing his decision to his companion. Well, if you can rest assured we will succeed, replied the companion firmly, convincing his partner that he had done the right thing. Okay, but next time keep me informed and warn me about such decisions in advance. Deal. Why don't we talk about leisure time as well as work? Remember that this weekend is our company's 10th anniversary, Harry asked. 10 years already. Oh, how fast time flies. Not so long ago, we were just taking our first steps in this business and looking for a reliable partner. And already we've been through so much, said John, remembering the hard way from a novice businessman to an influential oligarch, recognized on every corner. Yes, I can't believe that we are approaching such a milestone. I hope you don't mind that I'm throwing a party to celebrate. No, you know that I always support good ideas with both hands, replied the companion with a smile on his face. That's good. By the way, will you be at the event alone or with someone? Harry asked. Most likely alone. It hasn't been that long since my divorce, and it was hard enough for me, so I don't plan to start a new relationship in the near future, John replied, remembering his recent divorce from his wife, which had shaken his nerves as well as his wallet. Yeah, I know. A wife is a constant headache, Harry replied, supporting his companion. Well, you can't complain. Victoria's a prominent, educated woman, John replied. That's true, Harry replied thoughtfully, agreeing with his business partner. Where and when is the gala? John asked, as he was about to leave. I don't know yet. I've left it to Ariana to organize. As soon as something becomes clear, I'll call you, Harry replied, and shaking hands with not only his companion, but also his friend, did not delay him. After rummaging through documents and business papers until the evening, Harry didn't notice how another day of work had passed. He left the office and went home after smoking in the parking lot, eating the unpleasant tobacco smell with chewing gum, because he had promised his wife to quit smoking long ago and had deceived her by telling her that he had kept his word. Upon arriving home, Harry headed straight for the shower to freshen up and finally eradicate any odor that might expose him. Are you having dinner? We're having carbonara tonight, Victoria said as she met her husband coming out of the shower. Yes, of course. I'll be right there, answered the husband and hurried after his wife. Once in the kitchen, Harry heard the pleasant aroma of hot food and sitting down on a chair, almost sprawled on it with pleasure, tasting Victoria's next culinary masterpiece. How was it? I did not overdo it with spices, asked the wife, hoping to hear praise for her. It's divine, the husband replied, eating the entire plate before it had a chance to cool. That's great. Maybe I'll make chicken and shrimp rolls this weekend, Victoria asked, having read a new recipe. No, why not? It's our company's anniversary this Saturday, so we're going to celebrate at a restaurant. I hope you don't mind, Harry asked his wife. I don't have anything to wear, Victoria replied, explaining that it was a typical problem for a woman. Oh well, that doesn't surprise me, but it doesn't scare me. We'll update your closet tomorrow, Harry replied, reassuring and rejoicing his wife. I love you, Victoria replied happily, hugging and kissing her husband. In the morning, Harry kept his promise and called Ariana to find out the progress of his assignment. Having received the first results, the man called his companion back to say that he would have to work without him today and look after his subordinates, as he had promised his wife a shopping trip and had no right to deny her. Going to the boutiques, the couple bought not only a new evening dress for Victoria, but also put together a complete image, buying exquisite shoes and jewelry, emphasizing the beauty of a woman. A couple of days later comes the long-awaited Saturday, promising a grand party in honor of the company's anniversary. Hurrying his wife, Harry repeatedly called his business partner and secretary to make sure that everything goes strictly according to his plan. Toward evening, everyone gathers at a restaurant and celebrates the oil company's 10th anniversary, hoping that this is the first, but by no means the last, major anniversary. Harry and John accept congratulations from acquaintances and business partners. All present enjoy the performance of guest artists, dancing, drinking, and having fun. The oligarchs gladly listen to all the wishes, but as soon as they have a couple of free minutes, they do not forget about work and use the opportunity to discuss further plans and prospects of the company. Maybe I should contact my German partners. They promise to make a good order, but they are still silent, said John, worried about the upcoming deal, after all at stake, several $1 million. This is their business. I think they will contact us soon, and if not, they have more to lose than us. We'll sell it to someone else, because we have a good product and it's in demand, Harry said ironically, realizing that everyone needs oil. I don't know, I wouldn't want to risk it, answered the more pragmatic John, who valued every penny. Don't worry, everything will be fine. On Monday, I will contact the Israeli partners again. I will offer them the same volume at a price a few % lower, and they will be happy to buy everything. Tried to reassure his companion Harry, confident in his strength and ideas. Well, that's not a bad option. John supported his partner's suggestion, realizing that Harry was also very concerned about money and wanted to earn as much as he did. Men, why are you talking about work? Today is a holiday. Let's have a drink, Victoria intervened in the dialogue of partners, offering to raise glasses of champagne to enjoy a party in honor of the business, which they created from scratch. His wife says the right things, "Let's talk about business, not today," supported the idea of his wife, Harry. "Well, your wife is wise. She will not advise badly," agreed John, looking at the wife of the business partner with a smile. Harry paid attention to this and for a moment felt angry, but did not emphasize it. A few minutes later, the men saw the mayor of the city, who had decided to attend their modest party to congratulate the oligarchs. Noticing his appearance, Harry turned his attention away from his wife and companion, heading toward the mayor to greet him personally and accept congratulations. Taking advantage of this moment, John moved a little closer to Victoria to speak to his partner and companion's wife. "How are you enjoying the party?" John asked. "Yes, not bad. I was especially pleased with the choice of restaurant. I love Italian food. I remember when you used to love my mother's hot sandwiches and thought they were the best food in the world," the man said, remembering his childhood. At the time, John and Victoria lived in the same stairwell and attended the same school, so the two of them often went to school together. From first grade through 8th grade, they were inseparable until Victoria's family was forced to move downtown. "Yes, I really thought so then," Victoria agreed, giving into pleasant childhood memories. "My mom still spoils me with them," John replied, thinking about home for a moment. "It's beautiful. How are your parents doing?" Victoria asked. "They're fine. My mom still runs the restaurant I gave her a couple years ago, and my dad has retired for health reasons. He was in Switzerland recently for rehabilitation, but he's already back home. Say hello to them. Maybe you'll get to see them again sometime," said Victoria, who had always loved John's parents, who treated her like their daughter. "I will," John replied, and when he noticed Harry returning to the table, he returned to his seat. After a couple more hours, the party came to its logical conclusion, and everyone began to go home. After saying goodbye to his subordinates and business partner, Harry left the restaurant. "How was the party? Did you enjoy it?" Harry asked his wife on the way home. "Yes, it was great. You know I love this restaurant, so you've pleased me," Victoria replied. "To be honest, I didn't choose the venue, Ariana did. She has good taste. Tell her secretary thank you very much for me." "Ah, okay. I liked the host and the last musical duo better. There was something special and soulful about their song," Harry said, sharing his impressions of the party with his wife. "Yes, I agree. They were very nice and pleasant," agreed his wife, who actually prefers a little different, more colorful and dynamic music. Waking up early Monday morning, Harry headed for a shower and, while Victoria made breakfast, had time to get ready for the office. Having a quick snack and a cup of coffee, the man hurried to work, as a new and no less difficult work week lay ahead, portending not only a lot of money, but also nerves. Arriving at work around 8 in the morning, Harry noticed the companion's car and was surprised that he was already in the office, because usually John did not appear before 9 o'clock, because he had to take his little daughter to school, and it takes time in the morning. "Hi, why are you at work so early?" Harry asked him in surprise, looking into his companion's office. "Hi, I left her at my parents' house to look after her," John replied, telling them that his daughter had a cold. "Understood. Let her get better. By the way, this may be a stupid question, but what did you talk to my wife about during the party when I went to greet the mayor?" Harry asked suspiciously. "Oh, nothing. Just a few words, nothing more," John replied, realizing that he didn't know that he and Victoria had known each other since childhood and lived next door to each other. "Look, or I'll be jealous," Harry replied with a serious expression, glaring at his business partner. "No need. I don't pretend, and I'll never meddle in someone else's family," John replied, trying to prove that this was indeed an innocent and completely casual conversation. "Relax, I'm just kidding," Harry replied, his face changing dramatically and smiling. "Oh, you're joking." John exhaled and leaned back in his chair, realizing that his companion was just joking. After talking to his partner, Harry went to his workplace and, without putting things aside, buried himself up to his ears in papers. Several hours passed without any result. Denying himself lunch, the man continued to work, but after an hour, he realized that the efficiency of his work today is extremely low. Deciding not to continue his efforts, which did not produce any results, Harry looked into his partner's office and told John that he would go home early to rest and start work tomorrow with renewed vigor. Victoria arrived at the office a couple of hours later and went up to the second floor and headed for her husband's office. There was no one in the waiting room, and the office was closed, which surprised the woman. "Hi, do you know where my husband is?" Victoria asked, looking into John's office. "Hi, I didn't expect to see you here. Harry went home an hour ago, if not more," the man replied in surprise. That's weird. Did we just miss him or something?" "Maybe we did. Didn't you ask Ariana if he had a change of plans?" John asked, realizing that the secretary was more aware of Harry's plans. "Ariana isn't at her desk either," Victoria replied. "Well, maybe she went somewhere else on business. In any case, Harry isn't at work because he had an unproductive day and decided it was better to rest." "I get it, thanks. Okay, I won't keep you from your work, bye," Victoria replied, and after saying goodbye to John, she left for home. Was what they were saying at the office really true? John asked himself as soon as Victoria left. For months now, he had heard repeatedly from his subordinates that Harry and Ariana were much closer than boss and secretary. Trying not to sink to the level of gossip, John had denied the reality of such a thing. But this time he was beginning to have doubts, realizing that Ariana should be at the workplace, but she wasn't there and apparently had left around the same time as Harry. Deciding that it was better not to speculate but to talk, John pulled out his cell phone and called his companion. "Hi, where are you now?" John inquired, having reached his business partner. "Hi, I told you I was on my way home," Harry replied, surprised to hear such a question from his companion. "I remember that. It's just that your wife came to our office just now and was very surprised that you weren't at your workplace." "Did she ask about me? What did you say to her?" Harry began to ask anxiously, realizing that his deception might have been exposed. "Yes, she did, but I told her you two just missed each other. So, why don't you tell me the truth?" "Well, I'm not exactly home. I've had more important things to do." "I hope your personal business has nothing to do with Ariana not being at work either." "Mind you, I can't cover for you for long," John replied, alluding to Harry's cheating ways. "No, I don't know where she is and what makes you think she would be around?" Harry asked in surprise, unaware of the rumors spreading around the office. "No reason, I just assumed. Be careful, though, I don't want to fool Victoria and make up something plausible on the way home," John replied and hung up the phone, distracted by a customer who had entered his office. John called. "What does he want from you again?" Ariana asked, stroking Harry as she lay in the hotel room bed with him. "Yeah, my wife was just at the office. I'm sorry, but we have to get ready," Harry replied to his mistress and stood up from the bed and started looking for his pants. "How? You said the room was paid for until morning," replied the disappointed secretary. "I'm sorry, but that's just the way it is. Have you seen my socks?" "No, I haven't. When are you going to tell Victoria about us?" Ariana asked, tired of being the mistress. "Soon, I told you it wasn't a good time," answered Harry, who didn't want to change anything in his life. "You've been saying that for a year and you've done nothing. If this keeps up, I'm going to find someone else. John divorced his wife and is now completely alone. I can switch to him," said the secretary, trying to blackmail Harry. "Calm down, everything will be fine, just not right away," Harry calmed the girl down and went home, letting the secretary stay in the room until morning, since everything was already paid for. On the way home, Harry thought about how best to lie to his wife and which of the options would be more believable. The business trip and work immediately fell away, since his wife realizes he was out of the office, and any business meeting John would be aware of. Other versions seemed less real and some even fantastical, so they also didn't fit. Pulling up to the driveway, Harry still hadn't come up with anything intelligible that could convince Victoria of his honesty and integrity. Realizing that time was running out and it wasn't worth the delay, the man decided to go home and make up an excuse as he talked. Having gone up to the apartment, he entered and, having taken off his shoes, immediately went to the bathroom to take a shower and wash off the scent of another woman. "Hi, how are you?" Victoria asked, meeting her husband coming out of the bathroom. "Hi, sweetheart. I'm fine. I've been traveling on business all day. And how are you doing? Didn't you miss me?" Harry answered calmly, trying not to show that he knew about her visit to the workplace. "I missed you and even decided to come to your office, but you weren't there." "Yeah, I had a couple of people to meet, so I left early." "I'm surprised John didn't know about this. Did your secretary go with you or what?" Victoria asked incredulously, as if she sensed her husband was lying to her. "Ariana, what does she have to do with it? She wasn't in the office either, so I thought maybe you two started traveling together to business meetings." "No, she wasn't feeling well, so I let her go early," Harry replied, continuing to lie to his wife and making up new facts as he went along. "Do you take me for a fool? Tell me, do you have something with her?" Victoria asked, trying to get her husband to come clean. "What? What makes you say that? She's my subordinate and we have nothing." Harry started to deny everything. "Don't lie. I know you're keeping that stupid girl in your office for a reason." "Why stupid? Ariana is a very valuable and helpful person who's been a great help and support to me." "Of course she is. I'm not blind and I saw the way she looked at you at the party. Are you telling me you've never slept with her?" "No, I haven't and I never will. Look me, if I find out that my assumptions are correct, I will file for divorce and claim half of the property," Victoria threatened, hoping that this will scare her husband and he will not risk going to the left. "Don't forget, my affairs are none of your business and you have no right to control me. I'm not cheating on you, but I'm not going to listen to threats either," Harry replied sharply, and realizing that a fight was almost inevitable, went into the bedroom not to continue the conversation. Victoria was also angry, so she did not leave her husband alone, but followed him, continuing to find out about the relationship. "God, I'm so tired of this," Harry said, trying to isolate himself from Victoria, and wrapped himself in a blanket, covering his ears with a pillow. Realizing that her husband couldn't hear or listen to her, the woman decided to leave him alone. Nerves did not allow to calm down, and to distract herself from the conflict, Victoria decided to take a walk and get some fresh air. Having collected herself, she went to the playground to sit on a bench and watch the children playing under the supervision of their parents. She loves to spend time here, because only in this way she can calm down and forget about all the problems, dreaming that one day she will also become a mom. Determined to sort out her hunches and set the record straight, Victoria pulled out her cell phone to call John. "Hi, I hope I'm not distracting you," the woman asked, dialing her husband's business partner. "Hi. No, you know very well that I'm always free for you. Can we meet? Is something wrong?" "You've never called me at this time before," replied surprised John, realizing that it was already evening and Victoria's husband was at home. "You could say that, but we need to meet in person. Can you give me half an hour?" "Yes, of course. Are you home?" Practically. I'll be there in about 15 minutes. You can wait for me at the cafe across the street from your house," John replied, and he kept his word and arrived at the meeting place a little more than 10 minutes later. "So, what's wrong?" John asked anxiously, meeting the wife of his husband, with whom he had been friends and neighbors since he was a child. I think Harry is cheating on me. I asked him directly about Ariana, but he just got mad. Tell me if I'm getting my hopes up or not. I don't know. I'm not following your husband, John replied, realizing that he didn't know what to say to Victoria. We are not the first day we know each other. You cannot lie, and I will not believe that in the office there are no rumors about my husband. There are, but I'm not used to trusting them, and I don't want to be a gossip columnist. You just tell me about them, and I'll draw my own conclusions, replied Victoria, who hated cheating and betrayal more than anything else. Rumors about your husband and Ariana have been floating around the office for a long time, but I don't want to believe them. It's a classic story about the chief sleeping with his secretary. But you realize that most of the time it's just gossip and nothing more, John replied, realizing that he couldn't and didn't want to upset Victoria. I see. Thank you for your honesty. Maybe it's time for you to go home. Harry will be angry. I don't want you to have another scandal over this. Let's have coffee and I'll go, Victoria agreed, realizing that John was right. After a little chatting and drinking coffee, they left the cafe and went home, saying goodbye. When they returned home, Victoria didn't speak to her husband or start another scandal, realizing that the proceedings needed evidence, not conjecture and assumptions. Harry was also not in the mood for dialogue, and his wife's short absence did not bother him at all, because he was able to calm down and be alone. The next 2 weeks were unremarkable, as Victoria continued to oversee the house and domesticity, buying groceries and all the necessities for their comfortable existence. Meanwhile, Harry focused on work and met with several foreign delegations, signing a couple of ordinary contracts. Another evening dinner began with some unexpected news for Victoria. The day after tomorrow I have to fly to a conference in London. It will last all weekend, so don't expect me before Monday, Harry said, startling his wife. London? Why not here? They are very important business partners and potential buyers, promising a very good contract, so you need to personally go to meet them and convince them to sign the documents. Right, well, if you have to do it, you have to do it. Why don't I come with you? Enjoy the vacation, spend some time together. Maybe in some interesting restaurant we'll have dinner or go to the theater. Victoria asked, dreaming at least for a couple of days to go abroad and change the familiar environment. No, it won't work. I'm not going to rest, but to work, so I'll be very busy, and you'll only get in the way, Harry replied sharply, shattering his wife's dreams and hopes. Okay, maybe next time then, Victoria replied disappointedly, realizing that she clearly didn't fit into her husband's plans. Closer to the weekend, Harry packed his things for the planned trip, said goodbye to his wife, and headed to the airport. Here Ariana was waiting for him, to whom he had promised a romantic trip to Paris. Lying to his wife about a business trip to London, Harry decided to take a break from Victoria and spend time with his mistress. Flying to the capital of France, lovers are not afraid that someone will notice or expose them, because here the chance to meet someone you know is almost zero. Devoting all his time to the young secretary, Harry spoils Ariana with trips to restaurants, expensive perfumes, jewelry, and other gifts that create an unforgettable vacation in one of the most beautiful cities, not only in Europe, but also in the world. The evening before leaving, Harry decides to surprise Ariana and, sparing no expense, rents the entire restaurant so that the musicians, waiters, and kitchen work only for the two of them. You rented the whole restaurant just for the two of us. You're crazy, Ariana reacted, realizing they were the only guests. Everything is for you, Harry replied with a smile on his face, deciding this way to thank the girl for 2 wonderful days spent next to each other. When I marry you, will you be as sweet and romantic? I think so, but you know I have Victoria, Harry replied, reminding her that he was married. It's that Victoria again. When are you going to leave her? We've discussed this more than once. I told you it's not that simple. If she files for divorce, I could lose part of my fortune, and I don't want that. What's more important to you, me or the money? Ariana asked reproachfully. I love you and of course you are more important than money, but I am not ready to lose half of my fortune. I need to think about the right way to do it, but now is not the right time. I'm tired of being a mistress. All my friends are married, and I'm still single, and I can't tell anyone about our relationship with you. I'm sorry, I understand, but we have to wait a little longer. I'll think of a way to get rid of Victoria and marry you right away, Harry replied, realizing that it was easier to lie and do nothing than to listen to reproaches from the young mistress. There's no time to wait, it's time to act. I'm pregnant, and I'm not going to give birth without my husband. If you don't talk to your wife soon and tell her about us, I'll do it myself, Ariana replied, realizing that she can't delay and she doesn't want to be a single mother. Are you pregnant? Is it true, or are you checking me on purpose? Harry asked suspiciously, a little distrustful of his mistress and thinking that she was using this fact for blackmail. True, the girl answered firmly, taking out a positive test and a certificate from the gynecologist from her purse. It can't be, Harry replied, shocked. I've been pregnant for a month and it's no joke. You haven't had a baby in 10 years, and we're having a baby in less than 8 months. I hope this is a good enough reason to talk to your wife and put an end to your relationship, asked the mistress, realizing that used the main trump card. Yes, it is. I'll definitely talk to her, Harry replied, and happy that he was going to be a daddy soon, began to hug and kiss the secretary. At the same time, he felt that this news could ruin his life, jeopardizing his family, but it was too late to change or fix anything. The next morning, Harry and Ariana returned to their homeland. The man, making excuses for small problems at work, returns in a downcast mood and on the plane does not talk to his secretary, as he does not know what else to say, and he does not want to discuss yesterday's news. Arriving at the airport, Harry takes a cab and sends Ariana home. After a bit of thinking and smoking on the way to the parking lot, the man realized that he needed someone to talk to, ask for advice and figure out how to proceed. Trusting only one person, Harry decided to call his companion and faithful comrade, who had been helping him in all difficult situations for 10 years. Hi, how are things going at the office? Hi, yes, everything is fine. Yesterday we had guests from Austria. We discussed a potential deal. I took them to a restaurant. I think everyone is happy, and in a couple of weeks, we will sign another contract. Where have you been? Asked John, who had called Harry a couple of times, but he hadn't answered. Oh, I can't tell you in a nutshell. How about we get together and talk? Sure, come to the office, or you can come over to my house tonight. Let's do it in an hour at the bar near the office, where we often relax, Harry suggested, feeling an irresistible desire for a drink. All right, I'll try to be there, John replied, and having finished all his work, went to meet his companion. Once in the bar, he noticed Harry sitting alone at the far table with a bottle of white wine. What are you drinking? It's only lunchtime and you're already having trouble sitting down. I just don't know how to get it all into my head, Harry replied, taking another drink. What are you talking about? John asked, waiting for more details. Ariana is my lover, Harry said, deciding to start with the main point. Well, you didn't surprise me with that. I've heard those rumors in the office for a long time, though I tried not to believe them until recently. That's not the most important thing. This weekend we spent with her in Paris. I decided to arrange a romantic vacation, but what she told me last night turned the usual world upside down. So, what happened? She's pregnant, Harry admitted, tipping back another shot. Yeah, that's quite a story. What are you going to do about it? John asked, realizing that the situation called for action. I don't know. Ariana is demanding that I make choices because she doesn't want to be a single mom. I don't think you should rush into this, because you and Victoria have been together for 10 years, and that's no joke. Think about whether you should ruin your family and your life for the sake of a stupid and young mistress who only wants money from you, John said, hoping that his friend would get wise and act like a family man trying to save the relationship. You don't understand. If I don't make a choice in favor of Ariana soon, she will tell my wife everything. Can you imagine the uproar that would cause? Yeah, I can imagine. In that case, I'd advise you to tell Victoria yourself. It's much better that way. It'll hurt her anyway, but you better do it in person. If she finds out from her mistress, you'll be in trouble. I understand, but I'm afraid to tell the truth because I know my wife's character, Harry replied, anticipating Victoria's reaction. I could talk to her myself, but that's not a good idea, so take matters into your own hands before it's too late. Okay, I hear you. Thank you for listening, Harry replied, thanking his friend and ordering another bottle of white water to drink with him. After sitting in the bar until late in the evening, the men had a good rest and, having a few too many drinks, completely forgot about work and problems. Seeing a few missed calls on his phone, Harry realized that it was time to go home because his wife realized that he had returned to his homeland and was very nervous. Saying goodbye to his friend and taking a cab, the man went home and, thanks to alcohol, lost his fear of his wife. On the way, he worked out several variants of dialogue, having no doubt that he will tell his wife about everything immediately upon his return. When he got up to the apartment and struggled to get the key into the keyhole, Harry met Victoria on the doorstep, who had come to the door because of a strange noise in the stairwell. "Are you drunk?" Victoria asked from the doorway, smelling the strong odor of alcohol. "Yeah, sorry. I met John and had a few too many drinks while discussing work," Harry replied, forgetting all the versions of the dialogue he'd worked out on the way home. "I see. Well, it's no big deal," his wife said understandingly. "Thank you for not yelling at me," the husband replied in a calm tone, and taking off his outer clothes, wandered into the bedroom to fall on the bed. "Can you tell me how you went? How did the negotiations go? Did you get anything or not?" Victoria asked, trying to find out something about her husband's business trip. Harry answered dryly and fell asleep almost instantly, snoring heavily. Realizing that there was no point in disturbing her husband, Victoria collected her husband's things and, having returned to the hallway, hung his coat on the hangers, as suddenly airline tickets fell out of her pocket. Picking them up, the woman was shocked by what she saw. It turned out that the airline tickets were bought not to London, but to Paris. Moreover, her husband was flying on a business trip not alone, but with his secretary. Angry, Victoria wanted to find out why Harry had deceived her, but after trying to wake him up, she realized that it would not work and decided to wait until morning. Waking up early in the morning, Victoria went to the bathroom. Taking a shower, she didn't let the thought of her husband being in Paris with his secretary out of her mind for a minute without telling her the day before. Having thought of a lot of unnecessary things, the woman decided that it would be easier to wait until her husband woke up and talked to him about everything. At least somehow distracting herself from it, Victoria started breakfast and, having prepared a couple of dishes, forgot about airline tickets for a few minutes. When she heard that her husband was already awake, she called him to the table and took the tickets out of the drawer and waited impatiently for him to sit down at the table. "Good morning, my love. How are you going to explain this to me?" Victoria asked, throwing the airline tickets on the table. "What do I have to explain?" Harry asked with incomprehension, feeling very hungover and with a terrible headache. "Why did you say you were going to London, but you were in Paris, and not alone, but with your secretary?" "There's been a change of plans, and she's my assistant," was the first thing that came to mind. "Are you trying to make a fool out of me? Why didn't you tell me that right away?" Victoria continued to press her husband, realizing that he might be lying. "Look, what business is it of yours? Why are you going through my pockets and interrogating me?" Have I given you any reason not to trust me? Harry shouted back, tired of the constant questioning and reproachful behavior. I'm your wife and I have the right to know who you're traveling with and where you're going, Victoria replied, also raising her voice. Got it, shouted Harry and, banging his hand on the table, went to the bedroom. Quickly collecting himself, the man, without a word, flew out of the apartment like a champagne cork and, getting into the car, left for work. As soon as her husband left, Victoria wanted to run after him, but realized that it would not bring results. Left at home all alone, the woman could not find a place for herself. Waving for most of the day, she called her husband several times to try to talk again, but he never answered her calls. Realizing that it is impossible to let the situation go, and it is necessary to understand what happened, Victoria decides to go to the office and talk, but not with her husband, but with Ariana, finding out everything about their business trip to Paris. Once in the office and up to her husband's office, Victoria walks into the reception area and, seeing the receptionist, walks up to her. Hello, Ariana. Can you spare me a few minutes? Hello. Yes, of course, the girl replied politely. Can you explain to me why you went to Paris with my husband? Victoria asked, starting with the most important thing. Didn't he say anything to you? No, he got angry and left for work, so I would like to discuss this situation with you. Well, since he still hasn't made up his mind, I'll tell you everything myself, said the secretary, switching to you. Interesting, Victoria replied, intrigued, realizing that she was about to learn a lot of new things. Harry and I are lovers, and we love each other. He hasn't known how to tell you for a year now that he's sick of you. I'm beautiful, young, and always there for him, unlike you, Ariana blurted out, realizing that Harry would never dare tell his wife. I guessed, so you didn't surprise me. The only thing you miscalculated is that he loves me and will never leave me. You're just another toy for him to use and leave, Victoria said, trying to crush the hopes and expectations of her husband's mistress. I don't think so. Trust me, I know what I'm talking about, so pack your things and get out of here while your legs are still intact. You should quit your job and run as far and as fast as you can, or you'll regret it, Victoria said threateningly, determined to put her mistress in her place. I don't think so. I'm not going to quit because I'm expecting Harry's baby, and you're the one who has to get out of his life once and for all. What do you mean pregnant? Victoria asked, shocked, not expecting such a truth. Yes, I'm pregnant, a month pregnant. Unlike you, I'll be able to make him happy with children, so don't get in the way, Ariana replied, determined to hurt the woman with the lack of children. Hearing the screams in the waiting room, Harry finished the video conversation with his Israeli colleagues and, coming out of the office, saw his wife and mistress, clarifying the relationship between each other. Trying to resolve the conflict, the man tried to calm the women, but Ariana broke up not on a joke, and feeling that she has an advantage over Victoria, who did not give Harry a child for 10 years of marriage, began to insult her in every possible way. At the noise in the reception area, the office staff came running and, mouths open, watched the conflict between the two women, unable to divide their boss. Can't you see that this young hussy is targeting your money, and she's only interested in you because you're an oligarch? Victoria asked her husband. Oh, one would think that you live with him because you love him, replied Ariana, only confirming Victoria's words. Well, there you go. Are you going to live with this miracle? Victoria continued to ask her husband, emphasizing the answer of his young mistress. Calm down, let's talk about it at home, Harry replied, trying to calm his spouse. Why? Let's now tell her that you are divorcing, and you don't need her anymore. Ariana got into the dialogue, demanding that Harry make a choice in her favor. Don't get too excited about him being an oligarch. We've lived together for 10 years, and everything Harry owns is jointly acquired. I'm not talking about the fact that the company was started by my late father, Victoria replied, deciding to put the mistress in her place and remind her husband thanks to what and who he became a respected rich man. So, quickly into the study, said Harry, boiling with rage. Grabbing his wife by the shoulders and pushing her into his office, the man closed the door so she wouldn't break out. What are you looking at? Who wants to look for a new workplace? Quickly disperse to their workplaces. The concert is over, shouted the man, and went into the office after his wife. So what is all this called? Victoria asked, left alone with her husband. Calm down. Wait half an hour until I finish all the business, and we'll go to some restaurant. We'll talk about everything calmly over dinner, and I'll explain everything to you, Harry replied, hoping his wife would calm down. Okay, you've got half an hour, Victoria replied, determined to make sense of the situation. I'll be out in a minute, Harry said, heading out of the office. To Ariana's, right? His wife asked wryly, but the man decided it would be easier to ignore the question. So you won't be here in 10 minutes, said the man to the secretary as he walked out into the reception area. He realized that if his wife and mistress came face to face again, there would be no way to stop the scandal. Determined to returning to his office, he finished his work and, putting all the documents aside, began to pack, reminding his wife that they had agreed to have dinner at a restaurant and discuss everything quietly. Getting into the car, Victoria tried to restrain herself and wait for the promised dinner, but at some point she realized that resentment stiffened her chest and anger covered her mind. Explain to me, how could you? Is she any better than me? Are you starting again? Why don't we go to the restaurant and talk about it? No, let's deal with this now. Do you really want that stupid secretary? Are you sure that the baby is yours and not someone else's? Victoria continued to scandalize, trying to vent all the anger and emotions eating her up inside. I was just bored and wanted to have some fun. I didn't think it would go this far, Harry replied, trying to justify cheating. You got bored. All right, I get your point. Keep in mind that you and John have not only your savings in the company, but also my late parents' money. So when we split up, we'll be dividing not only the assets, but the business as well. I have no claim on the company itself, so you'll compensate me financially. I don't have that kind of money. You know that I invest everything in further development and prosperity. That's your problem. You should have fought with your head before, not with what's between your legs. Look, why do you need so much money when you have no one? I have Ariana, the baby's coming, but why do you need it? Harry asked, realizing that it was unlikely that they would be able to reconcile with his wife. That's none of your business. If you don't want to do it nicely, I'll hire the best lawyers, and they'll take away everything and leave you with nothing. Hearing these words from Victoria's lips, the furious man turned sharply into the alley, increasing the speed of movement. What are you doing? Where are we going? Victoria asked fearfully, but did not get an answer from her husband, who decided not to explain anything to her. 15 minutes later, they were outside the city. Looking at her angry husband, the woman realized that he was up to no good, but she couldn't imagine what he was up to. At some point, without stopping, Harry opens the passenger door of the car and pushes his wife out of the car at full throttle to the dumpster to the bums. Not caring what happened to his wife, the man turns around and drives away. Victoria, who flew out of the car, hit her head hard against the pavement during the fall and lost consciousness. Arriving home, Harry decided to get drunk, to forget for a few moments about what happened and turn off the mind demanding to go back and help his wife. Having drowned out his sense of conscience with a whitewash, the man fell lonely asleep in bed without taking off his clothes. Waking up to a phone call, Harry saw that it was 8 in the morning and he was late for work. After talking to his subordinate and giving him his orders, the oligarch drank his coffee and went to the office. Without a word to Ariana, Harry went into his office and, buried up to his ears in business papers, tried to somehow forget about all the problems that had fallen on his head. "Hi, were you drinking last night? You don't look so good," John said as he looked into his business partner's office and saw Harry looking disheveled and black-eyed. Yeah, he'd been drinking, so what? Nothing to me, but what's Victoria going to say about it? She's not gonna tell me anything. Yeah, right. Why don't you tell me about what happened here yesterday? The whole office is up in arms about last night's scandal. As I understood from the words of the subordinates, Victoria knows that Ariana is your lover and her pregnancy is not a secret for her. John asked, having heard the morning gossip. Yes, that's right. And what did she tell you about it? Did she file for divorce, or were you able to find common ground and calm her down? It's okay. We worked it out and there's no problem. This morning, she flew to Spain for a vacation, and I think that when she gets back, we'll be able to settle the conflict. Harry lied, trying not to tell his comrade what happened yesterday after work. I see. That's good, John replied, and without distracting the oligarch, he went to his office. Not fully believing Harry's story, the man decided to call an old acquaintance, but could not get through to her because Victoria did not answer the phone. When she wakes up, Victoria looks around and notices several strange men whose clothes she can guess from their clothes that they are homeless. The woman wonders what she's doing here and doesn't remember how she ended up in the dump in the middle of the people who live here. Trying to get up, Victoria feels a hellish pain in her head and grabbing it, notices traces of blood on her hands. Scared even more, she loses consciousness again. The frightened homeless people did not know how to help the unfortunate woman and called an acquaintance to help and talk to her. Coming to her senses, Victoria saw a pretty woman in front of her, dressed no better than the homeless people standing behind her. "What am I doing here? Who are you?" she asked, trying to figure out what was going on. "Calm down, you are in no danger. My name is Angelica. I found you last night in the neighborhood with a broken head," answered a woman of no fixed abode, trying to calm Victoria down. "I don't remember anything at all," replied Victoria, who had suffered a severe blow to the head. "It must be a consequence of the trauma. Don't worry, you will soon remember everything," replied Angelica, trying to support her new acquaintance. "I feel sick and hungry," said Victoria, who hadn't eaten for almost 24 hours, and clutched her stomach, feeling painful cramps. "Don't worry, we will solve this problem now," answered a beggar woman about the same age as Victoria. These words turned out to be more than just an encouragement, because after a minute she brought a whole bag of groceries and started pulling out cookies, fruit, and other goodies, and decided to feed Victoria. I don't feel comfortable eating you," modestly replied the well-dressed woman, realizing that homeless people don't have extra money. "Don't worry, I bought them with your money, which I found in your purse. I hope you won't be mad at me for that." No. I'm very grateful to you." "That's good," Angelica replied and sat down next to Victoria and decided to eat too. Noticing that the men standing nearby continued to stare at her, Victoria was embarrassed. "Don't be shy either. Come on over. There's enough food for everyone," she said, calling the two men closer to her. "Thank you. You're very kind," one of them replied and sat down next to the women and took a stick of sausage to make a feast for the stomach. "By the way, you said you found money in my purse, but the cell phone wasn't there," Victoria asked, hoping he would help her remember things sooner. "No, it wasn't there, honestly," Julia replied. "I believe you," Victoria replied disappointedly. Realizing that she did not know where to go, the woman decided to stay here and live with Angelica and other homeless people who lived in the dump by day and at night slept in a dilapidated house nearby. Constantly communicating with Angelica, Archie, and Frederick, Victoria realized that homelessness is not a sentence because despite the lack of housing they have retained their humanity and can be more interesting conversationalists than wealthy and self-confident people. So unnoticeably, she became attached to the homeless people who helped her and took her in their so-called house. Trying to save the remaining money, Victoria learns to search and get food on an equal footing with everyone else, because she doesn't want to stand out and is ready to do dirty work just to help her new friends. Soon it began to get colder outside, as winter was getting closer. One night Victoria came back tired and couldn't sleep because she was very cold. Hearing that her friend was shaking like a dog's tail, Angelica came to her and took off her jacket and gave it to Victoria. "You what? I won't take it." The trembling woman tried to refuse, realizing that she was uncomfortable accepting such a gift. "Don't worry, I have a warm sweater, so I won't freeze," Julia replied, reassuring her friend. "Thank you very much," Victoria replied, taking the jacket and wrapping herself in it. Once she was warm, she fell asleep like a baby. Adapting to life in the abandoned house, Victoria helps Angelica in every possible way, and while she goes out to get groceries, tiddies up a little to make their conditions a little better. A week passes unnoticed, during which the women become very close and even become friends. When Angelica returns from another attempt to earn some money, she brings bags of food to the abandoned house. As she starts pulling out the containers, she greatly surprises Victoria, who was expecting more modest loot. "Wow, did you rob a restaurant?" Victoria asks in surprise. "Practically," Julia answered jokingly. "And if seriously?" Victoria asked, a little scared, afraid that her friend had broken the law. "Don't worry, I earned it all. Today I helped in a restaurant on the outskirts of the city and took out bags with garbage and other waste. The chef gave me the leftovers in gratitude, so today we have a feast," Angelica replied, explaining where such riches came from. Rejoicing at the abundance of food, Victoria cleared a corner to set up a small clearing to have dinner. Realizing that they have become close enough, the woman decides to ask Angelica how she ended up at the city dump. "I'm sorry if I'm getting personal, but why don't you tell me what happened in your life and how you got here? Are you really interested?" "Yes, I am. 5 years ago, I had everything a woman could dream of: a good and loving husband, a wonderful son, and caring parents. Everything changed one day when I found out that my husband betrayed me. He raised his hand against me, but that wasn't the worst part." "Oh God, what happened to you?" With horror in her voice asked Victoria, realizing that this is only the beginning of the story. "Having betrayed me, my husband not only left me, but also took away my child. I tried to sue and get some justice, but he took my son abroad, saying that I will never see him again. I got addicted to the bottle and lost everything: a good job, friends, and my apartment, which was taken away from me for debts. It was shameful to return to my parents after such a disgrace, and continuing to drink, I ended up on the street. Trying to survive, I kept my fighting character and managed to control myself, but a ridiculous fight led me to the fact that I found myself behind bars and spent several years in prison. Once I was out again, I tried to get a job and get my life together, but it didn't work out, and I had to go back to living on the streets. Yeah, it's awful, especially for a child. Unfortunately, I don't have children," Victoria replied sadly, sympathizing with her friend. "Did you remember that?" Julia asked in surprise, realizing that her friend had suffered short-term memory loss after the trauma. "I think I did," Victoria said, even more saddened. "Why don't you tell me what happened to you and how you got to the point where your husband threw you out of the car?" "My husband is a well-known oligarch in the city who created a large oil company. It seemed to me that my life was like a fairy tale because I had everything, but over time I realized how wrong I was. We had no children, and maybe that's what caused Harry to cheat on me. He had an affair with his young secretary, and just before I was here, she revealed that she was pregnant. The quarrel jeopardized our family life, and trying to somehow save the family, I decided to scare my husband, saying that I would take away everything from him, because the business he built not only at the expense of his savings, but also at the expense of my parents' money. As it turned out, I made a big mistake, because he loves money much more than he loves me. Having made a choice in favor of the company and a pregnant mistress, He threw me to the dump, hoping that here I will go to the other world. Yes, another traitor who decided to throw his wife away as soon as he got tired of her. Julia sadly commented on her friend's story, realizing that her family life was no better. Unfortunately, it happens, Victoria replied, finally remembering everything. What are you going to do now? I don't know. I haven't thought about it yet. Maybe I'll say something stupid, but I advise you to keep quiet about it for the time being, not to say anything to anyone. You do realize that your husband openly wanted to get rid of you, and if he finds out that you are safe and sound, he can finish what he started and finish you off. Yes, I realize that. Perhaps you are right, Victoria agreed, realizing that her husband is ready for extreme measures to preserve and continue the development of the oil empire. Soon it was completely dark outside, and as the two best friends continued their dialogue, the women heard the approaching sounds of two homeless men returning to the abandoned house. Archie and Frederick were tipsy and actively arguing with each other, trying to divide a bottle of white wine. Without a moment's silence, the men went upstairs. Their quarrel continued for a few hours, but then they somehow calmed down, apparently having figured out how to divide the white wine. Realizing that they could rest, the women wrapped themselves in an old blanket found at the dump and fell asleep. A couple hours later, Victoria wakes up to suffocation and loud screams. When she opens her eyes, she sees a fire and hears the terrible noise of cars with sirens blasting her head with their shrill howls. Feeling herself being dragged somewhere, Victoria looked to the side and saw two men in rescuers' uniforms trying to pull her out from under a wooden floor beam. After pulling the woman out of the burning house, the firefighters continued their work and returned to the source of the fire, trying to extinguish it. "Don't worry, the ambulance will be here in a few minutes," said a man in a police uniform who approached Victoria. "What happened?" asked the shocked woman. "I wanted to ask you the exact same question. Maybe you can remember something or tell me something so that I can find out the cause of the fire," replied the policeman. "Where is my friend? Where is Angelica?" Victoria became hysterical, realizing that her friend was nowhere to be found. "Unfortunately, I have to inform you that your friend is no longer here. We found the body of a woman next to you, and we were unable to save her. Apparently, during the fire, the burning floor joist fell down, covering you with it." "It can't be." Victoria began to cry, refusing to believe in the reality of what was happening. At one point she tried to move, but when she felt a sharp pain in her leg, she lay back down. "Careful, don't move. You have suffered burns and a broken leg as a result of the fall of the beam, so you should not move." Your friend was even less fortunate, because the beam fell on her head, the policeman said with sympathy in his voice. A few minutes later, the fireman who had extinguished the fire approached the policeman and told him that the fire was on the second floor, where they had found two more bodies. Victoria realized that it was the drunken antics of homeless people, long unable to divide a bottle of white wine, but decided not to talk about it, because it would not change anything. Soon an ambulance arrived on the scene and, having given Victoria first aid, loaded her into the car. On the way to the city hospital, the woman tries to say something, but, feeling pain, loses consciousness. "Hello, glad you're still with us," greeted Victoria, who woke up in the hospital, the doctor. "Hello, are you a doctor?" the woman asked, remembering everything that had happened to her the day before. "That's right, my name is Steve. How are you feeling, Julia?" the man asked, worried about his patient's condition. "How do you know my name?" Victoria asked in surprise, deciding not to give herself away for the time being, heeding her friend's advice. "When you were brought to the hospital, we had to look through your things and check your pockets. In your jacket, we found a certificate of release from a place of detention," the doctor replied, explaining how he had recognized her name. "I see. You'll excuse me, but I'm not feeling well and would like to rest," Victoria said, wishing to be alone with her thoughts, to think about the plan of further actions and to buy time for it. A couple hours later, a young nurse came into the woman's room to check on her condition and help her if needed. After getting to know the nurse and realizing she was a nice girl, Victoria decided to ask for her phone for a couple of minutes to make a call. The conversation is confidential, so she asked the nurse to step out so she could talk quietly. "Hi, John. We need to meet urgently and talk," said Victoria, getting through to her husband's companion and old friend. "Hi, haven't heard from you in a while. How was your vacation in Spain?" "What's Spain? John, can you hear me? I need to see you." "Well, Harry told me you went on vacation and decided to stay there for a while." "Where and when can we meet?" replied a surprised John, not expecting a call from Victoria. "I'm at the First City Hospital. I'm sorry, but I can't talk long, as I'm calling from someone else's phone, and I'll tell you everything when I meet you." "Okay, I'll be there in half an hour," the man replied confusedly, realizing that the woman was not all right. "Oh yes, one more thing. Ask not Victoria, but Julia," Victoria finally said, hanging up the phone as a nurse and a doctor came into her room. After seeing the doctor, the woman thanked the nurse for her help and returned the phone. Soon, John shows up at the hospital and, heeding the woman's advice, asks for Julia. Once in the room, he saw Victoria with a plastered leg and was shocked at the state she was in. "What happened to you? How did you get here? And why does everyone here think you're Julia?" John began to ask, trying to make sense of what was going on. "Wait, not all at once. In order for you to understand everything, I'll have to tell you from the beginning," Victoria answered, realizing that she was waiting for a long and not the most pleasant for her story. "Okay, I'm listening attentively," John replied, and took a chair and sat down close to Victoria. "The day before I disappeared, I came to the office to talk to Ariana. As a result of the argument, I found out she was pregnant and threatened my husband that I would take everything away from him if he risked trading me for a young mistress. He was afraid, but not for our marriage, but for his financial situation, and, deciding that it is easier to get rid of the interfering spouse, threw me to the dump to the homeless. Fortunately, there are kind people there who took me out, gave me food and a roof over my head. Despite the total poverty, it seemed that life was getting better. But then I, recovering from a brain injury, began to remember everything. That same night there was a terrible fire, as a result of which my friend went to the other world. And in my jacket were her documents, and everyone mistook me for her. Realizing Harry might be after me, I decided to use Julia's name as a cover. I never would have believed that could happen, especially with people I've known for years. I can see where and why you disappeared in such a hurry." "Yeah, well, as you know, I didn't plan it." "Why didn't you call me sooner?" John asked, knowing he could have helped his old friend. "I had a memory problem, and I didn't have my phone. It was left in Haftoria, and giving her hope that things would soon change for the better." Victoria spends the next few weeks in the hospital recovering from her injuries and burns. John pays for the treatment, brings food and clothes, buys a cell phone with a new number to stay in touch, and, heeding Victoria's request, picks up the release certificate and works on restoring the documents in Julia's name. Once the paperwork is ready, John arrives at the hospital and picks Victoria up. The first thing the woman asks is to go to the place where she's been living lately, to see the burned-out house with her own eyes, and after being there for a few minutes, to say goodbye to Angelica. "How would you like to stay at my parents' house in the country? I'm sure they'd love to have you over," John said, inviting Victoria to his parents' country home. "Are you sure it's convenient?" Victoria asked, embarrassed, because she didn't want to be inconvenienced. "Yes, more than comfortable. Don't worry, I've already talked to them and basically warned them about it in advance, so there won't be any problems," John reassured the woman and, offering her to get back into the car, went to the country house. "Hello, Victoria. It's good to see you in our house," John's mother greeted the guest. "Hello, Lucy. I'm very glad to meet you too," Victoria replied, hugging the lovely woman tightly. "Oh, what guests? We've been expecting you," said John's father, also hugging Victoria. "Hello, Barry. Thank you. It's my pleasure." "Oh, who's so little and pretty?" Victoria asked, noticing a little girl behind the couple. "I'm not little. I'm already 7 years old. My name is Samantha," replied the little girl as she introduced herself to Victoria. "Hello, Samantha, and my name is Victoria. Nice to meet you. You are very pretty," said Samantha, complimenting her new acquaintance. "Thank you. You are very pretty too, and you remind me of your father as a child," said Victoria, looking at John and seeing that she and Samantha had a lot in common. "Well, since everything is fine, I won't interrupt you and I'll be on my way. I need to get back to work since Harry is being very careless right now," John replied, and after saying goodbye to his family and Victoria, he left for the office. On the way, he thought about how to deal with the problems that had accumulated, realizing that he could no longer count on and trust his business partner the way he used to. Not only had he been so mean to Victoria, but all of Harry's thoughts were occupied with a pregnant Ariana, preventing him from concentrating on his work. At the same time, John's parents warmly welcomed Victoria and gave her a separate bedroom on the second floor. Deciding to organize a small celebration, his parents prepared dinner and sent Samantha to Victoria to invite her to the table. "Grandfather and grandmother call you to the table," said the girl, knocking and looking into the guest's bedroom. "Okay, I'll be right there," Victoria replied, and after writing a thank you text message to John, she hurried into the kitchen after Samantha. "John said you are having some problems with your husband. We won't get involved, as it's none of our business, but we hope that everything will be resolved in a positive way soon," John's father said, trying to support Victoria. "Thank you, it's my pleasure. Yes, I think everything will be fine soon," Victoria agreed. I remember how you and John used to fool around at our house. It was a wonderful time," the man's mother recalled. "Yes, I completely agree with you. Our childhood was wonderful," Victoria replied, remembering how much time she'd spent with John and even dreaming that their friendship would lead to something more. "And I miss your parents the most. Anthony and Emma Grigorievna were wonderful people. It was a pity that they were gone so early." The head of the family supported the conversation, remembering Victoria's parents. "Yes, they taught me a lot, and it's a pity that this catastrophe, which happened 8 years ago, took their lives," Victoria replied with bitterness in her voice, still missing her parents. At some moments she missed them especially, because her mother could always listen and support her, give her sound advice, and her father would not leave her in trouble and would do anything to see a smile on her daughter's face. Continuing to give in to memories, parents John and Victoria did not notice how quickly the time flew by. At the same time, little Samantha was running around the table and, tired, sat in Victoria's arms and hugged her tightly, showing her affection for the woman. Noticing that the little girl was dozing off, Victoria did not wake her, but took her into the bedroom and put her in her crib. The next weekend, John visits his parents and brings gifts for his daughter. After spending time with his daughter, who he doesn't get to see as often as he would like because of his busy work, he spends a few hours with Samantha, playing board games and learning about her progress at school. After dinner, after putting the little girl to bed, John heads to Victoria's bedroom, realizing that they need to talk. "Can I come in?" the man asks, knocking on Victoria's bedroom door. "Sure, come on in. How are you doing here? Are your parents treating you well?" "Yes, everything is just fine. I miss them very much, and I have already forgotten what attention and care means. Besides, I've been spending time with Samantha, and she's a great girl, and she doesn't let me get bored." "Yeah, she can do that. Did you want to talk to me about something?" Victoria asked, realizing that John had stopped by for a reason. "Yes, I wanted to talk about what's going on at the company and Harry's life. Things haven't been going well lately, and he's been showing up less and less to work, and he's been blatantly neglecting important meetings and negotiations. I'm trying to keep the company going as much as I can, but there's just not enough time. Ariana's driving him crazy, I think. Well, it's his choice. It's what he wanted, so he can't complain now, Victoria replied without a trace of sympathy in her voice. After a little more talking, John notices that it's too late and goes back to his room. In the morning, waking up earlier than the others because of a phone call from the office, the man has a cup of coffee and hugging his mother tightly and asking her not to tell anyone that Victoria is staying with them, went to work. A couple weeks later, he arrives at his parents' home again, bringing candy, toys, and other gifts, not only for Samantha, but for the whole family, not forgetting Victoria as well. Once again secluded in the bedroom, John and Victoria discuss another event in Harry's life. He finally stopped coming to the office after their recent fight. What on earth had happened between them? Ariana constantly asked for money, demanded to buy her something, and Harry refused. Everyone heard them fighting, including me. I think he regretted his actions, but he had no choice because Ariana was about to give birth, and they spent all their time in the hospital preparing for the upcoming birth. Yeah, well, that's a lot of work. I haven't even mentioned the fact that he took a month off to be near Ariana and see the birth of his daughter. Well, that's his right, and you'll definitely handle everything, Victoria replied, supporting a tired and morally devastated John, working hard to keep the company growing and developing. Continuing to visit his parents all the time, John tells Victoria about everything, and not doubting the woman's intellectual abilities, asks her to help him in some cases. Remembering her education that her parents gave her, Victoria is up to the task and helps John, giving him at least a little rest and relaxation to spend time with his daughter. Having made another deal, John arrives at the country house again and taking Samantha and Victoria, leads with them to a restaurant to be alone and celebrate. The little girl is very happy about this and asks her father to go to an amusement park to play with Victoria. Agreeing to all his daughter's demands, John notices that Samantha is very attached to Victoria and, despite the age difference, they behave like best friends. A month passes unnoticed, and John arrives home and informs Victoria that Ariana has given birth to a baby girl. Rejoicing at this event, Harry threw a party at the office. Not everyone was happy about it, but many do not care what the occasion is, because the main thing is the opportunity to drink, have fun, and dance for free. Despite the party, Harry looked tired and devastated, as if he had carried and delivered this baby himself. John tried to talk to him during the party, but all attempts to find common ground failed. Deciding to give time not only to Victoria, but also to his little daughter, John left the woman alone with her thoughts and went to the nursery. "How are you doing at school? Is everything okay?" the man asked his daughter, playing childish games with her. "Yes, everything is great. Victoria is helping me with my lessons, so there are no problems." "That's good. I take it you two get along." "Yes, she's great and I like her a lot," Samantha admitted. "I like her a lot too," John said. "So maybe it's time to look at her," jokingly asked the man's mother, who overheard his conversation with her granddaughter. "What to look at her? We've known each other since childhood, and I know her better than I know myself," John replied, and after a few moments of thought, he realized that Victoria was really very interesting, pleasant, and pretty to him. Early in the morning, John leaves for work and, digging through business papers, goes about his usual business. Closer to lunch, his Israeli partners come to him, able not only to pay for the goods, but also to offer him a way to increase his income. In the course of the dialogue, they suggest investing money in a new project, the successful implementation of which will double the company's capital in just a few years. Realizing that such an idea should be discussed with Harry, John promises to think about it and reply in a few days. Going to his companion's office, John again fails to meet his business partner and calls him, but he does not answer. A couple of hours later, Harry shows up at the office and closes himself in the study to get some respite from Ariana's reproaches and the baby's constant crying. John insists on talking because he has important news that cannot be delayed. Israeli partners are offering to invest money in a new project. I've done a little research on the subject, and it seems like a more than profitable idea. Are we in or what? I'd love to, but I have other things on my mind right now. Yes? And what are your thoughts, may I ask? John asked irritably, realizing that there was a lot of money at stake. I'm tired of Ariana's ever-increasing demands. At first I thought that everything would be fine and it was a temporary phenomenon related to her pregnancy, but she gave birth, and the situation only continues to worsen. Buy boots, order a fur coat, update my closet, give me gold and diamonds, hire a nanny for the baby, buy me a car, and that's all in the last week. I'm not surprised, to be honest. From the first day, it was clear that you were not interested in her as a man, but as a bag of money, John replied, realizing that Ariana consciously became the mistress of an oligarch. I understand that, but we have a child together. What can I do about it? Harry asked in a sad voice, unable to change anything or make a risky decision. I don't know. I can't help you. I don't have such problems. Why don't we talk about work? John asked, trying to get back to the subject of the Israeli partners. Okay, let's. So, what are they offering? They suggest investing all our income not only in oil, but also in alternative energy sources, because they are the future, both in Europe and around the world. Yes, it's a good idea, but I don't have the money right now. What do you mean you don't have the money? We just recently received the interest from the deal with the Swiss. John asked in shock, not understanding how it is possible to lose money so quickly, which would be enough for a normal person for a lifetime. I can't forbid her to spend my money, Harry replied guiltily, realizing that it was wrong and admitting that he had become a weak and characterless man, unable to do anything drastic with his mistress. Let's then do the following way. I will invest money and pay for both of us, but with the condition that in 6 months you will pay me back the entire debt. Would that be okay with you? Yes, of course. I'll definitely pay it all back. Harry supported his friend's idea and, hearing the phone ringing, realized that Ariana wouldn't leave him alone and wanted something again. Deciding not to prevent his friend from communicating with his mistress, John went to his office and, calling Victoria, told her everything. She supported John's decision, appreciating his foresight and the prospect of capital growth. Having received Victoria's support, the man finally stopped doubting himself and his decision, called back the Israeli partners, and, having invested the money, signed a contract for the purchase and further realization of devices and mechanisms necessary for the creation of the alternative energy market. Did you remember that it's time to return the money? John asked, after waiting for the previously agreed upon deadline. I don't have any money to spare right now, Harry replied pitifully, who had become not only sadder, but also more pathetic in appearance over the past 6 months. You realize I don't care much about that. You and I made a deal, and it's time to keep that promise. How about I pay off my debts by signing over some of my shares to you? Harry suggested, realizing it was his only option. All right, this option is fine with me, agreed John, and, having invited a lawyer, formalized the transfer of shares with his companion. I hope we're even now, Harry asked, and, seeing the gesture of approval from his partner, went to his office. Hi, I have good news for you. Get ready. We're going to the restaurant in an hour, John said, calling Victoria. Hi, okay, I'll be waiting for you, answered the intrigued Victoria, guessing that the news must be very pleasant. During dinner, John not only told her that he had appropriated some of Harry's shares, but also congratulated Victoria because the entire share he had received today would be registered to her in the near future. Why? "I do not need anything. You are already very kind to me," modestly replied the woman, who became uncomfortable that she so openly uses the kindness of an old friend. "Don't make it up. Your parents were involved in the creation of this business, and you deserve to own a share of the company," John replied, reassuring Victoria. A couple of months later, a similar situation occurs and Harry, deprived of free money, realizes that he has to lose some more shares. Ariana stays on his neck, demanding more and more gifts, surprises, and trips. Not wanting to get into debt, Harry realized that it is easier to sell part of the business to a loyal companion and business partner, which he can buy back if possible. Having suggested it to Roma, he did not expect that John would agree so easily, and having delivered the necessary sum, would buy back another part of the shares. Having made a solid purchase, John rewrote the shares to Victoria, making her a full-fledged partner. Upon arriving home, John spends time with his parents, daughter, and Victoria. After playing with Samantha and doing homework with her, the man again invites Victoria to the restaurant, saying that he has very important news for her and in general has something to talk about. The woman gladly agrees and, wearing a beautiful evening dress, goes with John to the nearest restaurant to be alone and find out what exactly he wants to tell her. "I have to tell you a very pleasant news. I have rewritten to you another part of the shares, and now you are a full-fledged partner." "Are you crazy? Why did you do that?" Victoria asked, not believing her own ears. "Because you deserve it. You are a very sweet, kind, and good woman who has been treated unfairly, and I have to restore the balance. You don't owe me anything, because you didn't throw me out on the street. And yet I want to and will help you." "Thank you, John. You're a true friend," Victoria replied, thanking her husband's companion. "You're welcome, but I don't want to be your friend. I have feelings for you, and with full confidence, I can say that they are not friendly," replied John, afraid to look the woman in the eyes. "Are you serious?" Victoria asked in surprise, noticing that John was very embarrassed. "Yes, you're a wonderful person, and not only I noticed it, but also my daughter. She likes you very much because we were able to find a common language and become friends. She misses her mother, who abandoned her in the divorce, and I thought that Samantha would never let any woman near her or me, but you managed to change my mind about that." "Thank you. I'm very pleased with your words," Victoria replied, embarrassed, afraid to admit that she had become very attached to John, not only as a friend, but more than that. A week later, a new deal with the Germans was expected, which had been anticipated and prepared for more than 6 months. Harry, constantly preoccupied with Ariana, has completely forgotten about it and would hardly have remembered the meeting if not for a call from the lawyer reminding him to report to the office. Soon John, who had been preparing the deal with the German partners all this time, arrives at the office. Half an hour later, the foreign delegation arrives as well. Soon negotiations begin, which are resolved successfully. Harry and John put their signatures, but the lawyer is in no hurry to certify the document, as if delaying or waiting for something. Harry hurries the lawyer up, realizing that he had only asked Ariana for a few hours. "I'm sorry, but we can't finish the process as all the shareholders of the company must be present at the signing of the contract." "What do you mean?" "Me and John are here. Who else do you need?" "I'm waiting for Julia." The lawyer answered and explained that the company recently got a third shareholder whose signature is also required. "John, what does that mean?" Harry asked in surprise, turning to his companion. "I was short of money, so I sold some shares to Julia. Don't worry, she's a very nice woman. I'll call her now so she can come and sign the documents," John replied and went to another part of the office to call Victoria. After hearing about the business deal, Victoria was glad that she would finally be able to see her husband and talk to him, putting an end to the story. About an hour passed and John, standing by the window, began to smile. "Here comes Julia," he said, glancing at Harry. "Where is she?" "Show me," said a nervous Harry, and stood up to look at his mysterious companion. Walking over to the window, Harry turned white when he saw his wife getting out of the luxury auto. He was shocked that he never expected to see his spouse alive again. A few months after he dumped her in a dumpster with the homeless, Harry saw a news report on TV. It said that there had been a fire in an abandoned house not far from the dump, and that a young woman who looked like Victoria had died as a result. "I don't get it. What kind of joke is this?" Harry asked, glancing at John. "She'll be here in a moment, and she'll explain everything herself," he replied calmly and returned to the conference table. Victoria, who had pretended to be her friend Julia, signed the documents and then escorted the lawyer and the German partners out, leaving John and Harry alone. "Don't go anywhere, darling. I'll be back soon to tell you everything," Victoria said in a calm tone as she left the office. As soon as the door closed, Harry pounced on his business partner with reproach, trying to figure out what was going on. "What is this? How could you do this to me?" "This is our new companion. What's wrong with that?" John asked calmly, as if mocking his business partner. "Are you joking, or do you really not realize that Victoria and Julia are the same person?" "Why, I understand everything perfectly well. Moreover, it was me who helped her to restore the documents to another name." "Why? Why are you helping her all of a sudden?" Harry asked in bewilderment, thinking that they didn't know each other well enough for John to do such generous and kind acts. "You see, the problem is that you don't know everything about me. I used to live in the same stairwell as Victoria's parents, and I've known her since she was in diapers. We spent every day together until we were teenagers, but when she became your wife, we decided not to talk about it, realizing that you might get jealous of her, even though there was no reason to be. When she was left on the street, I was the only person she could confide in and call. After I took Victoria out of the hospital, I took her in. So what? You were friends, but why give her the business? Because since childhood I've been indebted not only to her, but also to Victoria's parents, who have passed away. Once she and I were playing on a frozen lake, and not noticing a crack, I fell through the ice. Victoria called her father, who was fishing nearby, and they saved my life. It would have taken a few more minutes for me to freeze all my limbs off, but that didn't happen thanks to Victoria's lightning-fast reaction and decision-making speed. Believe me, I'm capable of more than that for her sake," John replied, explaining his position and attitude toward his companion's wife. Just at this moment, Victoria returns to the office and informs that she is ready for a dialogue with her husband, hoping that it will be the last one for them. Not wanting to be present, John leaves and, after kissing Victoria on the cheek, promises to wait for her downstairs by the car. Kissing the man back, the woman promises not to be long, as she's already missed Samantha and would love to spend time with her rather than Harry. As soon as John left, Victoria sat down closer to her husband to sort out once and for all what he had done, putting him in his place. "You know, there's only one thing I really regret," Victoria began. "What's that?" Harry asked, not realizing what it was about. "About saying yes at the registry office. It was a huge mistake, because you weren't worthy of it. I spent 10 years working for you, helping you build a business, asking my parents to invest in your idea. And how did you repay me? I gave up my career and woke up every day just to take care of you, to nurse you and do everything I could to keep you focused on your work. And you got mixed up with the skirt chaser behind my back. She gave you a daughter. I could have had a baby too, if it wasn't for the fact that I had to carry you around like a baby. Not only did you ruin our marriage, spit on my parents' hard work and investment, but you threw me out on the street and thought you could get away with it. What are you going to do now?" Harry asked guiltily, realizing that he had done something vile and despicable. "I would have loved to tell the police, but time has passed and I let the situation at the dump go. I don't hold a grudge against you and I can forgive you for what you've done, but I'm not giving you the company. My parents' savings are invested in it, and it is not just a family business for me, but a memory of my relatives who have passed away. I understand you, I'm guilty, and I can hardly ask for forgiveness. Harry began to repent, realizing that he could already be behind bars, if not for the leniency of his wife. I'm glad you realize that you're not a hopeless person, but I don't need your apology. I've forgiven and forgotten you as a husband and a man, but I don't want to see you in the office again. Do whatever you want, but I don't want to see a trace of you here, Victoria replied, giving her husband conditions. Okay, I'll do everything. I'll leave and you won't remember me, but give me a couple of days, Harry replied. Deal? You have 2 days, Victoria said, and left the office and headed downstairs. As she hugged and kissed John, she realized that he really had feelings for her, and it seemed to her that they were completely mutual. Meanwhile, Harry, realizing his guilt, decided to do one last thing to please his wife. After packing all his things and clearing out his office, Harry returned home and informed Ariana that he and his daughter had to leave for another city. The young mother was unhappy with this decision, but Harry, hitting his fist on the table, convinced Ariana, and she, obeying the father of her child, agreed with everything he said. A few weeks later, John asks Victoria if she wants to fly to Paris. The woman laughed in response and said that she would go with great pleasure, because before everyone but her had been taken there. A couple of days later, John and Victoria fly to Paris, where the man, having rented one of the most prestigious restaurants, made Victoria a proposal. Not thinking long, she agreed. Upon returning home, Victoria and John organized a celebratory dinner, telling the joyful news to her parents and Samantha. The girl was genuinely happy and rejoiced most of all because she will finally have a loving and caring mother, which she has long dreamed of. A month later, the couple legalizes their relationship and, taking Samantha with them, goes on a honeymoon to Disneyland. 9 months later, they have a miracle baby boy.
Thank you for watching this video to the end. Subscribe to the channel. Like it, write comments if you like the story, and see you on the channel.